On October 15th, 2024, just as darkness blanketed the city of Atlanta, the tense wail of police sirens shattered the night. Crowds of anxious residents gathered quickly around a narrow alley behind Washington Street, illuminated by the flashing lights of patrol cars. There, lying motionless on the cold ground covered with rotting leaves and dirt, police discovered the lifeless body of a young African-American man. He was soon identified as Malik Turner, a 26-year-old known for his gentle nature, with no criminal record and no ties to gangs or violence. But what deeply unsettled the officers was the eerie white mask placed deliberately over Malik's lifeless face, a chilling message clearly left by his killer. Detective Marcus Holloway, a seasoned investigator from the Atlanta Police Department, approached the scene, his expression serious and contemplative. Marcus had witnessed many horrific crimes throughout his career, yet this one stirred an unsettling sense of dread deep inside him. The white mask lay silently on the ground, shining grotesquely under the glare of police car headlights. Marcus knelt to examine it closer, feeling a bone-chilling unease creeping up his spine. His instincts told him this was not an ordinary murder. It was something disturbingly different. At the crime scene, besides a mysterious white mask, no trace of evidence could be found. No fingerprints, no murder weapon, and not a single eyewitness. Malik Turner's death seemed to have been executed by a ghost, an invisible force beginning to spread terror across the city. By nightfall, news of this bizarre murder swept rapidly through local media. Speculation ran wild. Was this a sign of an emerging wave of terror? Was a serial killer lurking unseen in Atlanta's shadows? Or something even more sinister? Marcus stood quietly at the crime scene, the chill seeping deep into his bones. He understood clearly. The white mask wasn't merely a sign of crime. It was a direct challenge aimed squarely at him and the entire Atlanta Police Department. And the nightmare had only just begun. Just 2 weeks after the first chilling murder, the city of Atlanta descended once again into chaos. In the early hours of October 29th, the body of a young African-American woman was discovered in Piedmont Park. Again, the same expressionless white mask was carefully placed upon her face. Marcus Holloway stood silently beside the body of Jasmine Cole, a vibrant 22-year-old psychology graduate described by friends as lively, passionate, and deeply committed to fighting for equality and black rights. Her death, mirroring Malik's in every haunting detail, forced the entire police department to confront a grim reality. They were dealing with a serial killer, a meticulous and merciless predator selecting his victims deliberately. Pressure from the public weighed heavily upon Marcus and his team. The media quickly branded the unknown culprit the White Mask Killer, fueling panic and speculation across the city. Atlanta's residents, particularly within the black community, began living in fear every nightfall, each wondering who would be next. Marcus spent sleepless nights at his office, poring over every tiny piece of evidence. Yet the more he investigated, the clearer it became that these were no impulsive acts of violence. Each crime was calculated, methodical, as though the killer was intentionally mocking and challenging the police. Initially, suspicion naturally fell on known white extremist groups responsible for similar crimes in the past. But Marcus felt increasingly uneasy with this theory. Why did the killer consistently choose a white mask? Was it a deliberate statement on racial discrimination, or merely a clever facade concealing a darker, more terrifying truth? These unsettling questions haunted Marcus during long, sleepless nights. Meanwhile, out there in the darkness of Atlanta, hidden deep within the shadows, the killer still lurked, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike again. Marcus knew one thing for certain. If they didn't stop him soon, Atlanta would remain trapped in an endless cycle of fear, suspicion, and death. Atlanta had become a pressure cooker, boiling over with anger and fear. When the third murder occurred in early November, this time involving a young black musician named Terrence Graham, the wave of panic intensified. Once again, the chilling white mask, the killer's ghastly signature, was discovered next to Terrence's lifeless body inside his modest apartment. Marcus Holloway felt himself drowning beneath an immense wave of public pressure. He struggled with insomnia, waking each morning exhausted and increasingly helpless. Yet, even worse was the deepening rift the murders had created within the community. Black activist groups openly accused the police of failing to protect them, while white extremist factions seized the moment to fan the flames of racial hatred. Faced with this crisis, Marcus decided to focus his investigative efforts on local white supremacist groups. A large-scale operation swept through known extremist hangouts, but every lead turned into a dead end. Potential suspects either had rock-solid alibis or were completely uninvolved. Late one evening, Marcus stood in his dimly lit office, staring at the evidence board covered with haunting images of the victims and that ever-present white mask. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something crucial, a piece of the puzzle staring him straight in the face. Suddenly, his phone rang, startling him from his deep contemplation. On the line was an officer patrolling the outskirts of the city, reporting that a witness had just come forward. A homeless man claimed he'd seen the murderer fleeing Terrence's apartment building on the night of his death. Without hesitation, Marcus rushed out of his office, driving swiftly through the cold, dark streets, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Was this finally the break he'd been desperately awaiting, or could it be yet another diversion planted by the killer himself? Whatever the truth, Marcus knew one thing clearly. This was the best lead he'd received after weeks of despair. He couldn't allow this nightmare to claim even one more life. Thick darkness blanketed Atlanta as Marcus Holloway pulled his car to a stop on a narrow street corner, where a dim street lamp barely illuminated the shivering figure of the homeless man waiting anxiously. Marcus approached slowly, noticing the exhaustion and fear clearly etched across the man's face, the sole eyewitness to the ongoing nightmare. I saw him," the homeless man stammered, eyes darting nervously, as though afraid someone might overhear. "I saw him leaving the apartment. He moved like a shadow, but I got a good look, officer." Marcus kept his voice gentle and reassuring. "Can you describe him? Did you see his face clearly?" The man hesitated briefly, then looked up with a troubled expression, seemingly unable to believe the words he was about to say. He was black, officer. Definitely a black man. There's no mistake about it." Marcus felt a chill surge down his spine, unsettling him deeply. This revelation was completely at odds with everything he and his team had assumed until now. If the witness was telling the truth, all previous theories about a white extremist perpetrator had suddenly crumbled to pieces. He studied the witness closely, searching for any signs of deceit. But the homeless man simply stared back at him earnestly, fear and sincerity clearly evident in his tired eyes. Returning to his office, Marcus sat quietly at his desk, overwhelmed by conflicting thoughts. He recalled the peculiar details he'd encountered. All victims were black, but why did the killer deliberately leave a white mask behind? Was it a cruel mockery, a twisted symbol of racism, or was it carrying an entirely different hidden meaning? Marcus decided to keep this new information away from the media, understanding the panic and anger it would cause. Yet, he himself was now utterly perplexed. Just when the answers seemed within reach, the mystery had only deepened. Leaning back in his chair, Marcus closed his eyes, troubled by nagging doubts. Had the homeless man truly spoken the truth, or was this another clever trick by the killer, meant to mislead and confuse the investigation? Outside his window, the city remained quiet beneath the dark sky. But Marcus knew that somewhere out there in the endless shadows, the killer was watching his every move, waiting patiently, smiling coldly, and preparing to strike again. 3 days after the homeless man's shocking testimony, another tense night descended upon Atlanta. Marcus Holloway was still haunted by the chilling image of the mysterious killer, a black man, contradicting every previous assumption made during the investigation. Just as Marcus sat lost in thought at his office, the phone rang sharply once again. On the other end, a patrol officer urgently reported a violent attack at an abandoned complex near the outskirts of the city, displaying clear signs identical to previous murders. Without hesitation, Marcus and his special operations team sped through the dark streets, their red and blue lights flashing urgently against empty storefronts and shadowy alleyways. Marcus's heart raced as he wondered if tonight would finally be the moment they'd confront the elusive killer face to face. Upon reaching the scene, tension hung thick in the air. A young black man, badly wounded but miraculously still alive, trembled as he recounted being suddenly attacked by a man wearing a white mask. His description matched exactly the previous witness's testimony. The assailant was a black man, agile, swift, and merciless. Marcus quickly directed his team to fan out, searching every corner of the surrounding darkness. Police officers swept their flashlights across abandoned buildings and shadowy thickets, desperately seeking any clue to the killer's whereabouts. Suddenly, amid the chilling drizzle that began to fall, Marcus heard rapid footsteps behind the abandoned building. Spinning around sharply, he glimpsed a figure darting swiftly through the rain, quick and panicked. "Stop right there!" Marcus shouted, his voice echoing through the night, heart pounding wildly as he broke into a run. The intense chase unfolded in near-total darkness, weaving through trees and overgrown brush surrounding the desolate property. Marcus's heavy breathing mingled with the frantic footsteps ahead, while his colleagues moved swiftly to encircle the area. After several heart-stopping minutes, the figure abruptly vanished, swallowed whole by the darkness as if a ghost had disappeared into thin air. Marcus paused, gasping heavily, and suddenly noticed a small, reflective object lying on the ground. Kneeling down, his blood turned cold as he recognized it. The chilling white mask, expressionless, cold, and taunting. Standing frozen in the pouring rain, Marcus felt a sense of overwhelming dread. The killer was clearly toying with them. Always close, yet always just out of reach, like a phantom flickering somewhere between reality and nightmare. Tonight, the killer had escaped, but Marcus swore silently to himself that this chase was far from over. There was no way he'd allow this maniac to continue spreading fear and death through his city any longer. Marcus returned to his office just before dawn, clothes still soaked from the bitterly cold rain. He placed the white mask on his desk, staring at it darkly, almost expecting it to suddenly speak and reveal all the secrets he desperately needed to uncover. After a long night of frustration, Marcus finally picked up the phone and called the only person who could help him make sense of everything. Dr. Laura Bennett, a renowned criminal psychologist famed for her skill in profiling serial killers. Laura arrived at Marcus's office early that morning, professional as always, yet her expression carried an unmistakable note of concern. Marcus handed her the case files and placed the mysterious white mask, the only significant piece of evidence, before her. Laura studied every detail carefully before raising her eyes to meet Marcus's troubled gaze, her voice unusually grave. This killer isn't just murdering people for the thrill. The way he places these white masks on his victims indicates a profound self-hatred. The color white likely symbolizes an identity he desperately wants but can never attain. Marcus frowned, struggling to process what Laura had just suggested. "What exactly are you saying? That he hates himself?" "Yes," Laura confirmed firmly. "We may be dealing with a very rare identity disorder here. A black man who desperately wishes he were white. Every time he kills a black victim, he's symbolically attempting to kill himself, destroying the black identity he despises so deeply." Marcus stood silent, stunned by Laura's analysis. It sounded utterly insane, yet it aligned perfectly with the bizarre details he'd encountered. It explained why the killer always appeared elusive, almost invisible, and consistently left behind such symbolic clues. "We have to find him quickly," Laura continued urgently. "People suffering from this type of delusion are extremely dangerous, especially when they spiral into desperation. He won't stop, Marcus, until he's either caught or destroys himself." Marcus nodded solemnly, feeling an even heavier weight pressing down upon him. Laura's words hadn't eased his worries. In fact, they made him even more anxious. The killer was no longer merely a nameless phantom. He'd become a dark, twisted, tormented shadow. After Laura left, Marcus stood alone by the window, gazing down at the city, slowly waking beneath the pale morning light. He knew that to uncover the truth hidden behind the white mask, he'd have to venture even deeper into darkness, a place filled with painful secrets and uncomfortable truths he might not yet be ready to face. In the days that followed, Atlanta remained gripped by fear as the elusive killer continued to evade capture. Marcus Holloway, following his revealing conversation with Dr. Laura Bennett, broadened the investigation, urgently seeking new suspects matching the disturbing psychological profile she described. One late afternoon, while Marcus sifted through countless hours of security footage near the crime scenes, his eyes froze in shock at something that appeared on the screen. In surveillance footage from a camera near the scene of Jasmine Cole's murder, the shadowy figure of a black man appeared suspiciously at the exact time of the killing. Marcus replayed the footage repeatedly, his heart racing. He could scarcely believe his eyes when he recognized the familiar face. Isaiah Brooks, an ordinary office worker Marcus had encountered several times at community events. Isaiah had always been polite, reserved, and notably distant, displaying no prior signs of suspicious behavior. A wave of doubt and confusion surged through Marcus. How could someone as quiet and unassuming as Isaiah Brooks be connected to such horrifying murders? Was this merely a bizarre coincidence? Or had they finally identified the mass killer they'd been desperately hunting? Immediately, Marcus and his team began discreetly monitoring Isaiah. It quickly became clear that Isaiah led an isolated, unsettling life. He had no close friends, avoided social interactions, and deliberately steered clear of conversations involving race or identity. Determined to uncover the truth, Marcus secretly entered Isaiah's apartment while he was away at work. The moment he stepped inside, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The air inside felt oppressive and filled with an unnatural darkness. Slowly, he moved toward a room at the back of the apartment, stopping in stunned disbelief at the sight before him. The dimly lit room was filled with identical white masks, neatly arranged and covering every inch of the walls. A small desk sat nearby, piled high with photographs of the victims, newspaper clippings about the murders, and an old leather-bound journal carefully placed at the center. With trembling hands, Marcus opened the journal. His heart nearly stopped as he read the first page, written hastily in uneven handwriting. I was born trapped inside a body that doesn't belong to me. I despise this skin color. I despise the truth that I will never become someone else. I must free myself from who I am at any cost. Marcus closed the journal, breath coming sharply, realizing the entire investigation had just taken a terrifying new direction. Isaiah Brooks, the quiet, seemingly harmless man, now held the key to unraveling this bloody mystery. As Marcus left the apartment shaken to his core, he understood clearly that the final confrontation with Isaiah was drawing dangerously near. Yet, what scared Marcus most was this question. When that moment came, would he be able to save Isaiah from himself? Or would he only drive him further into the darkness? Marcus left Isaiah Brooks's apartment with a heavy heart. Returning to his office, the haunting words from Isaiah's journal echoed relentlessly in his mind, each line as sharp and painful as a dagger thrust deep into his soul. Marcus couldn't shake the tragic desperation and profound self-loathing Isaiah had described, trapped within a body and a skin color he vehemently rejected. He spent the entire night poring over every page of Isaiah's journal, each entry filled with anguished fury and crippling self-hatred from a man steadily losing his grip on reality. Isaiah had written vividly of a lonely childhood, of humiliations endured because of his skin color, and an obsessive, aching desire for another life, another identity, one where he felt accepted. As the first faint rays of dawn crept into Marcus's office, he realized he'd stayed awake all night. Closing the journal, Marcus's eyes were weary but filled with renewed determination. He understood clearly now. Isaiah wasn't simply a cold-blooded murderer. He was, tragically, a victim of his own tortured psyche, deeply wounded and twisted by persistent injustice, prejudice, and mental anguish. Later that morning, Marcus and his investigative team laid out a careful plan to apprehend Isaiah at his workplace. Marcus hoped to arrest Isaiah quietly, preventing danger to innocent bystanders. However, upon arrival, they found only an empty desk. Isaiah had vanished without a trace. A surge of anxiety gripped Marcus. He knew Isaiah was rapidly spiraling into desperation, and someone that desperate was dangerously unpredictable. Suddenly, Marcus's phone rang sharply. On the line was a patrol officer, his voice trembling with urgency. "Sir, we found another body. But this one, it's completely different." Marcus rushed immediately to the crime scene. The sight that met him left him stunned and speechless. This time, the victim was a white man, completely unlike the previous murders. Yet the familiar white mask was there, shattered into pieces, scattered chaotically around the body in a clear sign of uncontrolled rage. There could be only one explanation. Isaiah had lost all control, descending fully into madness and utter desperation. He was no longer guided by any pattern or restraint. Now, the race against time had grown more intense than ever. Marcus stared down at the shattered white mask, understanding now more clearly than ever that he wasn't merely confronting a serial killer. He was confronting a man pushed to the edge of an abyss. A man named Isaiah Brooks, whom Marcus alone could stop before he sank irretrievably into darkness, destroying himself and taking more innocent lives along with him. The biting cold of that evening made Marcus Holloway feel suffocated. Throughout the day, the police had conducted an exhaustive search, finally uncovering a crucial lead that pointed to an abandoned house on the outskirts of the city, the suspected hiding place of Isaiah Brooks. Marcus led the special response team into the dark, desolate area. Flashlight beams cut sharply through the gloom, scanning every shadowed corner. His heart beat rapidly, anxiety tightening in his chest. This was the decisive moment, the moment when the mysteries and fears would finally end. As Marcus stepped inside the dilapidated house, he immediately noticed Isaiah's figure, curled up in the corner shadows. Isaiah looked up, his eyes filled with panic and despair as Marcus slowly approached. "Isaiah," Marcus spoke softly but cautiously, his hand resting firmly on the gun at his side. "Let's end this here. Don't hurt anyone else." Isaiah let out a weak laugh, trembling with pain and bitterness. "Hurt? You don't understand, Marcus. The one who hurts the most is me. I never wanted to harm anyone. I just wanted to escape myself." Isaiah's voice echoed hauntingly through the cold, empty room, sounding almost like a desperate plea. Marcus stepped closer, trying to keep his voice steady and understanding. "I've read what you wrote, Isaiah. I know the pain you're going through, but this isn't the way out. You have to stop." Slowly, Isaiah rose to his feet, a handgun shaking unsteadily in his grasp, pointed directly at Marcus. His eyes filled with torment, caught between reason and the madness rapidly overtaking his mind. "You don't understand, Marcus. You'll never understand what it's like to live in a body you despise. Every morning waking up is like facing a sentence all over again. I tried to ignore it, but I can't." Marcus raised his hands gently, cautiously moving closer, closing the gap between them. "I know you're hurting, Isaiah, but think of those innocent people. They didn't deserve this. You still have a chance to end this now." Isaiah stared silently at Marcus, tears blurring his vision, the gun trembling violently in his grip. A fierce internal struggle raged within him between the man he longed to become and the one he desperately wished to escape. In that excruciatingly tense moment, Marcus understood clearly that even the smallest mistake could trigger irreversible tragedy. He took a deep breath, speaking quietly but firmly. "Isaiah, let me help you. Please, don't destroy yourself any further." Isaiah looked at Marcus, desperation mixed with the faintest glimmer of hope appearing in his eyes. He stood frozen, slowly lowering the gun, inch by cautious inch. But just as Marcus began to feel a hint of relief, Loud sirens blared from outside, police lights flooding chaotically through the shattered windows. Isaiah jerked his head upward in panic, the gun once again rising unsteadily in his hand. "Why did you lie to me, Marcus?" Isaiah shouted, his voice breaking in tears and fury. "You just want to drag me back into the darkness." Marcus stared helplessly at Isaiah, fear and despair gripping his heart. He knew this was the defining moment, the moment that would determine Isaiah's fate and perhaps even his own. Marcus stood frozen, feeling as though time had stopped. The only sounds were Isaiah's heavy breathing and the chaotic noise of police officers approaching outside, their red and blue lights flickering through the broken windows. Everything hung by a thread. One wrong move could lead to disaster. Isaiah stared at Marcus, the gun trembling violently in his hand, eyes full of despair. Then, slowly, his expression softened, and he spoke in a hoarse whisper. "I can't do this anymore, Marcus. I don't want to carry this burden another second." Marcus tried to remain calm, responding gently. "Isaiah, it's not too late. You still have a chance to make things right. Trust me." Isaiah lowered his head, tears streaming down his face. Pain and remorse etched deep into his features as he slowly placed the gun on the ground, raising his trembling hands above his head in surrender. Marcus quickly moved forward, carefully kicking the weapon aside. As police officers rushed inside, Isaiah remained utterly still, his eyes vacant, quietly mumbling meaningless apologies. Marcus signaled his team to keep their distance, allowing him one last moment alone with a man he both resented and pitied. In the faint light of the dilapidated room, Isaiah whispered in a trembling yet clear voice, "You know, Marcus, I never really hated them. I only hated myself. I tried destroying the thing I despised most, but I finally realized that I can't. I'll never escape myself." Marcus watched Isaiah with a heavy heart, understanding now that Isaiah had lost this battle from the very beginning, a battle against himself, a fight he could never truly win. Isaiah was quietly handcuffed and led away. Marcus stood silently, watching the police car disappear into the distance, carrying away the broken soul of a troubled man. Though the case had finally come to an end, Marcus knew the scars it left would forever linger within him and the city of Atlanta. A few days later, Marcus sat alone in his office, gazing out at the gloomy skies above the city. Life was slowly returning to normal, but he knew the wounds Isaiah had inflicted would take a long time to heal. Beside him on the desk lay the shattered white mask, the last remnant from his haunting case. Marcus picked up a small piece thoughtfully, reflecting on the devastating price paid because of prejudice, hatred, and above all, self-loathing. He understood clearly now. The true murder wasn't just Isaiah Brooks. It was the invisible darkness that dwelled silently within each person, always waiting for a chance to surface. And until humanity confronted that darkness, people like Isaiah would continue to exist, lives would continue to shatter, and cold, expressionless masks would remain forever haunting reminders of the truth hidden within.